The Halter-Preston Houghton MP, David Davis, is among 50 Conservative MPs writing a letter to the Prime Minister calling for emergency legislation around Albanians arriving in this country. Now, they say the legislation should be passed to ensure anyone arriving from Albania can be refused asylum, and anyone claiming they've been a victim of human trafficking can be taken home. David Davis can tell us more now. Good afternoon.
Afternoon.
What is the thinking behind the letter you've signed, then?
Well, what I'm trying to pick up is sort of best international practice, and the best example here is Sweden. And Sweden published a list, about half a dozen safe countries where they've been getting applicants for asylum from, safe countries. Now, asylum is supposed to be if you are being oppressed by the state, you're at risk of being imprisoned improperly or risk of being executed or tortured. You flee your country and come to another country. And for a long, long time, Britain's provided that sort of asylum. But, of course, in the last some decades, it's become abused. Now, in the case of Albania is a member of the European Convention on Human Rights. It's had fewer court cases against it than we have had in the last 5 years. It's a safe place, and it's one of the countries that Sweden has classified as a safe space. And what they do is they basically turn around at the border. They say, no, if you're claiming asylum from Albania, go home. And it's an immediate response, a summary judgment, if you like. And the result is that since April of last year, they've accepted zero asylum seekers. They accept people for other reasons, but zero asylum seekers from Albania. Now, for us, we've had 12,000 people, 1/3 of all of the cross-channel migrants have been Albanians, and that has helped overwhelm the system. So that now, when people arrive, it takes about 420 days to get a decision out of the system as to whether they can stay or not. Well, when that happens, it's broken, the system. You end up with people being sent around the country, staying in the Humberview Hotel, staying in Thwaite Hall and other places, in Hull and other places. So I took the view that we have to dissect this and see whether we can fix it. My view is that we can change the law, our British law, not international law, British law, to allow us to turn around, and as you said, also to allow us, if they claim to be trafficked, say, fine, okay, well, not fine, but we understand, but we're going to take you back home, and if you want to pursue any legal case, you can pursue it from home. After all, if you're complaining you've been trafficked, surely what you want to do is to go home.
Should we not have a principle, though, that every case is different? Doesn't matter where they come from, and it's looked at. And you're right, need to improve that system and get rid of that backlog. But no matter whether you're from Albania or Eritrea, wherever it may be, your case is looked at individually.
Well, if you come from a country where there is that sort of risk, then yes, I agree. But what's happened in the last year and a half is that we've gone from nearly zero, a very, very, very small number of Albanian refugees, up to, as I say, 12,000 a year. The reason that's happened is the individuals themselves may be perfectly decent people, but they're brought here by criminal gangs who've seen a profit-making opportunity, Albanian criminal gangs in this case. And before I did this, I went to see the National Crime Agency to talk to them about that backdrop. And so that's the problem. It's not Albania per se, it's any safe country, but in our case, Albania is the primary source. And if you take the time to go through a complicated legal process, it gets longer and longer and longer, and the person ends up basically having lived here for several years, maybe got married, maybe had a child. At that point, they're here forever. So you have to do something very quickly. The Swedes are world leaders in human rights. They're world leaders in civilized treatment of people, which is why I look to their example as a way of developing this. And I'm afraid, most of the people who come from Albania are firstly not at risk from their government. In fact, nearly all of them are not at risk from their government. It's a safe state. But they are brought here by criminals who brief them on how to use the loopholes in our system. And we must deal with that. We must shut those loopholes. We've got to be fair to them and decent to them, but we must shut the loopholes and in the interest of the real asylum seekers. I mean, look, if somebody comes here from Afghanistan, and they've been a translator for the British Army, and now they're afraid of the Taliban, and they come with their family. Well, in my view, we should deal with it. If somebody comes here from Ukraine, who are fleeing the Russian troops, then we should deal with it. But I think in order to make space for that, you've got to make sure that the system's not abused, and the Albanian gangs are abusing the system.
And you hold Sweden as a good example there. What about other countries? I mean, other European countries, what do they do with Albanians?
Well, they vary a bit. Nobody takes as many as us in terms of acceptances. The Albanians now are targeting France and Britain. Those are the two countries they mostly target. The people who are making money out of this. But many, I've got a list of them, and the vast majority of European countries do not accept any Albanian asylum seekers. They may accept people for other humanitarian reasons from time to time, but 0 is the normal score for the last year, when I last looked. Whereas we accept 55% of those who go through the system, roughly 55%. It's way more than anybody else. I mean, the others are down in the 10s to 20s at the highest, but mostly 0. So, what we will be doing will be pretty much in line with most of the rest of Europe. And one of the reasons the Albanian gangs come here is because they know they can play our system, they can manipulate our system, and we ought to make that impossible.
Thanks for your time this afternoon, David Davis, who is the MP for Halton, Price and Howden.